The Pacers have 3 new players this year. How can they help the team? A much deeper dive into the numbers, the play types, the specifics that make Jay Huff, Kam Jones, and Taelon Peter who they are, all coming today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Happy Wednesday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes, and today, very fun one that I like to do every offseason, take an enhanced look at every new player on the Pacers roster, really get under the hood with the numbers, watch a lot of their specific play types to learn what directions they like to do things, what the little quirks are that make them successful, and really learn how they can help the team. In the past, it's usually a 2 or 3 episode podcast long series, but the Pacers only have 3 new guys this year. Of their 18 guys right now, 15 of them last played an NBA game for the Pacers on their last team. The only 3 new guys are Jay Huff, Kam Jones, and Taelon Peter. We already learned from people who covered them in their old spot about them. Now I want to tell you how they can help the Pacers given their past numbers and successes. Reminder, this is called How They Can Help. This is not a comprehensive overview of their skill set. There are obviously things that these rookies and inexperienced players who have a combined 95 games of NBA experience, there's not a comprehensive look at how they can play. They obviously have things that they will struggle with. This is what the numbers and their past say will be their best things, and more than just the things that were already talked about at several or different high levels before they joined the Pacers. Okay, all those caveats aside, let's start with Jay Huff, who has been billed correctly in some ways as he can do Miles Turner-y stuff, right? Is that going to be what the end product looks like for Jay Huff, or is that labeling even fair? Oh yeah, I do think that's true, that he has that skill set. He's not as good as Miles Turner, obviously, but he can do a lot of those things. But he is more than that, and that's where I think that I really want to get into this. For example, he does a lot of what I would consider Pacers-y stuff, right? Stuff that as the Pacers kind of dive in and figure out who can fit on their team, who can execute their style, because if you're not a good fit, even if you're good, you're going to run into some issues with the way they play. Transition opportunities last year, just in terms of frequency with the Memphis team that forced a lot of turnovers, 84th percentile in frequency. Okay, lots of guys can have frequency. Are you good? Yes, 98th percentile in transition efficiency last year was Jay Huff. That's excellent for a center, right? He runs and moves pretty well. He's not very ground bound, as you can tell by his goofy dunks and ability to block shots. So he moves into space well, is how I would describe his transition ability. Because it's varied, right? He made 90% of his twos and ripped in his threes. More than 50% of his threes went in transition opportunities. That obviously will not hold. Honestly, neither of those numbers might not hold in a full season setting. But if you're very conscious of where open space is, that's generally already, one, a good thing in transition, and 2, when you're on a team that is very specific about running to the corners and using that as a spacing mechanism, having a player like Huff who is really into focusing on getting to those spots and getting to his own spots, that's a good thing, right? He'll be able to get open a lot, and he'll very rarely be high on the option poll. Lots of teams were willing to leave Turner open at times. I think that will be the case with Huff too. And that expands just beyond transition, right? That's the open floor. A lot of times you have advantages or open space, but even in the half court, he finds a lot of room to wiggle around with his cutting. He's very heady with his cutting. Cutting is really different now because, you take away a three in a way that in the past, people were more willing to concede, but a lot of defenders will just be like, great, I don't really care about the cut. Like, you're not taking a three anymore. You're coming towards the basket. So a lot of cutting now is like ducking in when your teammate's on the opposite side of the paint, or figuring out the right time to kind of slash away from a pick and roll opportunity towards the basket, or a well-timed back cut. It's not like a lost art form or anything. It's just kind of changed when you do it, because you're just darting it through the paint from the 3-point line has different utility now, and defenses are differently conscious of it. And so with Huff, that is very pertinent because he's a good shooter, right? And so sometimes with players like him, if you cut off the 3-point line, all of a sudden your defender can drop their shoulders, but okay, great, he's not going to take a three, that's fine. But Huff's really good at that kind of opposite side of the paint, duck any, find the space kind of stuff. And because he has some level of vertical spacing allowed, he can't just be totally ignored when he's running toward the rim. 68th percentile in terms of his efficiency as a cutter last year with Memphis. That's great, right? So I think that the stuff that the Pacers will need him to be is getting open and finishing plays. He's very rarely going to be a creator. His pick and roll stuff isn't awesome, and that's a dwindling play type. But if he is just asked to be open and put the ball in the basket when he is open, great. The numbers suggest that is where he will have the most ways to help the Pacers on that offensive side of the floor. That's a good thing for a team that with Miles Turner, that was the case too. Turner developed quite a bit. He was always a pick and pop big, but he developed his roll game, and with Haliburton's passing was kind of able to really unlock the 3 levels of his scoring that he had when he could get into open space and knew when to mix those things up. I think that'll be Huff's biggest thing to watch this year is when does he understand the decision-making of when to go to what level after a roll, and obviously he won't have Haliburton's passing there. Other stuff on the non-efficiency department, because a lot of that was already billed before Huff came to the Pacers. 91st percentile efficiency on putbacks. That's great. He's very tall. He has that goofy reverse dunk, obviously, but it's a little more, touch than just that. Everybody and I listen to a ton of podcasts. I'm an information guy when it comes to the NBA. And I have yet to hear anyone really be like, yes, Jay Huff, good rebounder, clearly good rebounder. Most stats say not a good rebounder, right? The per game, the advanced numbers. But Joe Mullinax on the show from Locked On Grizzlies, covers the Grizzlies. That should be the person who knows the best. And I trust Joe. I talk to Joe all the time. Or I talk to Joe about the Grizzlies all the time. Said he is a good rebounder, right? Trusts that ability from him. I'll be fascinated to see where that lands. So I think when he does grab boards on the offensive end, he's going to be good at least turning that into a good chance for him or his team. How good his rebounding actually is will be very important in that. But if that's a way he can actually help, that could separate his skill set from what my personal expectation is from him. And you dig a little deeper on the putbacks, and you just want to go, well, what's he good at finishing at the basket? The backwards dunks are hilarious and they're adorable and they're cute. And that's a good thing to have a funky shot that, no one can really block. There's actual utility to it, but he's just a really great finisher in general, right? 85% from 0 to 3 feet in his career is sensational. Obviously on very limited minutes in his early spots, but last year with the Grizzlies in 750 minutes in his 64 games, 84%, 1% lower from that distance. That's awesome, right? A lot of trust is going to come there when he's asked to do stuff around the basket. That won't necessarily be a play call or anything like that, but that's obviously encouraging. And that goes back to the play finishing stuff from earlier. So that's a good thing for the Pacers and something that they can be happy about with Jay Huff. And so I wonder, and I think this will be a talking point a lot this season, how much will be about wondering hey, should Jay Huff shoot more? Should he be exclusively getting it up when he gets the ball? How is he going to have to approach attacking open space, keep it moving versus just dude, your true shooting's over 60. Just shoot. We'll see. Defensively, this is how he can help. I don't think he's going to be a great defender for the Pacers, but he held up well against post-ups. That's kind of it. But against team, I think that what my takeaway from really diving into some of the defense and watching the post-up specifically is that he will be best and he will have the best defensive chance to defend against teams where the center isn't involved as much on offense, right? They're not setting a ton of screens. They're not a hub type player. That is some teams in the league. Centers are more involved all the time. Skilled size continues to grow in importance, but those are the teams where his defense will be good because then he can, if the center's not involved as much, he can be kind of around the basket and use those blocks a little bit more, but 2, then he can survive more defending post-ups. He won't be tasked with as much involvement and turning and using his hands and moving around. When Jay Huff's driving, if Jay Huff has a reason to put the ball on the floor and drive, he's going right. That dude loves to drive right. He does not drive left very much. So expect him to be a left side of the floor starter to the extent that matters. I don't know how much Jay Huff putting the ball on the floor actually matters, but how he can help, the high-level-y, turnery stuff, yeah, that's there. But there's a lot of more Pacers-specific things that I walked away from this going, oh, that's great. A lot of numbers here today. since I didn't say this for citing my sources earlier, are from Synergy, which I do fortunately have a chance to look at and have access to for these exercises. So good chance to dive into Jay Huff. Let's move to Kam Jones. Really wanted to do this one because I never heard about him being left-hand dominant, drive left all the time guy when he got picked by the Pacers. But then in Summer League, he went left like all the time. And I really wanted to watch the drives and look at the numbers and see more about Kam Jones. How can Kam Jones help this Pacers team, even maybe in year one? That's coming up next here on Locked On Pacers. Before we talk about that, we got to talk about FanDuel. August 26th is coming right up, and it is officially FanDuel Features Day. It's a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and love their preseason hunches. For that 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL preseason predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, if you're picking your division winner, maybe even a long shot there, or you're ready to pick your champ, go crazy as this right before the week one kickoff. It's your moment. Take a flyer in the MVP race. Is Mahomes your guy? Someone else? Crown your champion. The Colts? If you're here in Indy, parlay your division winner dark horses. Visit the FanDuel app today. Make it all happen. Start planning your future bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. That's August 26th on FanDuel. Play your game. We're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Glad to be back from vacation, rocking through this. Make your second listen Locked On Celtics. One, because Vic Gruspek, not the governor, maybe the governor for another year, maybe a co-governor. How's this going to work? He doesn't own the team. That's always so funny. We're on the third straight, I believe, ownership change where the old owner's like, yeah, they're going to let me keep running the team. And then not that long after someone else buys the team, it's like, just kidding. No, they're not. John Krause will have more on Locked On Celtics. I'll be very curious to hear more about that arrangement. And the other reason you should listen to Locked On Celtics is John's going to be on this podcast tomorrow. I want to talk with him, because he covers the Celtics, obviously, about the idea of gap year and what this really means. And is this even like a thing that makes any sense? That will be what tomorrow is about. I talked about what a gap year could look like for the Pacers, but I want to zoom out, conceptualize what this really is. And John's a perfect person to do it, because the Celtics are not in the same spot as the Pacers, obviously, but that general premise does apply to them. Okay, let's continue here on the How They Can Help series by looking at Kam Jones, the Marquette guard. Summer League was fun to showcase what this guy is. He was obviously banged up and got better every game. I've run through all that already. The injury was a part of it. Marquette was interesting. A lot has been talked about how he switched positions when Tyler Kolek got drafted. I think Summer League, particularly that game that he played that Ray J. Dennis did not play and Quentin Jackson did not play, that was very telling. He cooked. He had 20 and 10 in that game, right? He could really wiggle. He could get into the paint. He had some nice, he just burped up a midi and made it. I use burped up as a positive. Some people use that as a negative basketball phrase, but if you create a little bit of space all of a sudden and just quickly get one up, that sounds like burping it up to me. He can really cook in those kind of situations. He's got a little bit of creativity. He's got a little bit of funk, and I like that. And as the stats show and as the film show with the Pacers, when he has the ball and he can run a pick and roll or some sort of screening something, that's good, very generally. Now, like I said with Huff, the league is kind of, and specifically the Pacers, they're not trending away from pick and roll. It's just this is an action thing. Teams are going to set picks for the rest of the time, but it's becoming less and less prevalent as just a spam this action kind of thing. But that is where Kam Jones' bread and butter action was at Marquette. Watch a Marquette game, watch a full Marquette game. You'll be amazed how many possessions start with two screens at the top for Kam Jones, right? For him to do something. And that shows up in the stats. 99th percentile frequency pick and roll player for the Golden Eagles last year. That's crazy. And so even if you think the NBA is drifting away from this, he's got a lot of experience and a key action that will never go away. 85th percentile efficiency in the pick and rolls as the ball handler last year, Marquette. That's great. That's where his number one, this is how you can help the Pacers. If you're asked to score or distribute, give him a pick, let him get a half step on his defender, right? Because in Summer League, he showed he wants to go left. And that's great. If you're good at it, he had a 20 and 10 game doing that. But it actually was way more varied at Marquette. He went left more than right, but it was 60-40, 65-35, right? So I don't know what exactly kind of enticed him to just going to one side or the other in that summer league setting. Like, you really want to be comfortable when you're showing off for a new franchise. But I think when he plays for the Pacers, he will actually be not as go left all the timey as he was in that setting, which is good because I thought that was a little shocking how often he went that direction. Not shocking like bad, just I was like, oh, every time. And so that will be something to keep an eye on, because if he has more variation to his game, that helps a lot. He certainly shoots his layups left-handed, so we might have to figure out how to get creative finishing when he's coming from the right. But anyway, let's do some other things. So screening, pick and roll, that he has the ball. Off screens, low frequency that last year, but we'll get back to that. 97th percentile efficiency. Handoffs, very high volume, 63rd percentile efficiency. That's to say, when he's managing a screen or he's got someone helping him get open, he's very good, right? He can use that extra space to turn that into something, whether that's space for a shot for him, whether that's a shot for his teammate, whether that's just something that tilts a defense and then lets Kam Jones keep that tilt going with a pass or a shot. He's very good in those moments because he's not like slow, obviously, but I don't watch Kam Jones and go, wow, this guy's so fast. He's so quick. He's so fast with the ball. He can really blow by guys. But he's very good at leveraging and managing that advantage a screen gives him and lets him get ahead of a defender by a half step, a full step, whatever. He will keep that advantage, right? He'll keep you on his hip. He'll keep the space in front of him, even if you're on his side. He will just somehow make it possible for him. And there'll be better defenders in the NBA that make that harder. But I think when he gets a screen in whatever way, will be big for him. But not being fast really helps him with control too. Like, people call this deceleration with fast players. Like, he doesn't really have to decelerate. He's just not such a blur that he can just like comfortably transition right into his shot. I mean, in summer league, we saw that all the time. He's just very in control and very managing when he gets a screen. I think that's very telling of, a mature player who's confident with the ball. And so I'll be curious, of course, what that means for him in the pros. I've talked about him as an on-ball player. He was drafted, and people talked about him being a point guard at Marquette. And that's true. The last season he was there, he was a point guard. Right? He had the ball in summer league a good amount. But a lot of his time at Marquette, he was not on the ball. Tyler Kolek was there, and Tyler Kolek had the ball. That dude is a better passer than Kam Jones. He's a more traditional college setup man. Shaka Smart was like, Tyler Kolek, you dribble, right? The Knicks certainly think that's going to be a good player. They paid him like it, right? 2 years ago, when Kolek and Kam Jones were together, you can really shift the play type data and see Kam Jones is sharp at this too. It's sort of like Huff, not as impressive as Huff, but it's sort of like Huff where he's good at seeing open space and planting himself there to get his shots. 87th this is 2 seasons ago, 2023-24 season. 87th percentile as a spot up finisher. That's good. Kam Jones having a jumper, it looks a little weird, but if it goes in, great. If he is a jumper, that's huge. 79th percentile coming off screens. He was good at that, of course, obviously last year, like I said, where he was 97th percentile, but very low volume. He had much higher volume 2 years ago. 94th percentile cutting 2 years ago with the Golden Eagles. So he can see the floor well. That's going to be important for being a point guard. I kind of think positionally, not comparing the two player skill sets at all, but positionally he'll be Nemhardy in that the 2 is very possible, if not more comfortable, and the 1 is totally fine. They obviously right now, in the very near term, for him to help the Pacers, need him to be a 1. But it's possible, I think, as his kind of career progresses and they figure out what he is, that him playing the 2 with some frequency or like that being something they're comfortable with him doing is totally on the table. Good finisher on layups. That's good. CBB Analytics has his shot chart finishing at 66% within 4.5 feet of the rim, and that's on a ton of attempts and pretty good in the lane finisher as well. So that's obviously encouraging compared to not. Low turnover guy. I think last year at Marquette, his turnover rate was below 10%. He had the ball at the time. Actually, every year at Marquette, except his freshman season, his turnover rate was below 10%. That's obviously fantastic. A lot of Pacers-y stuff in there. And to just kind of wrap it up, right? If you can finish and you don't turn it over and you're good at working well with another player setting a screen, that's just like a fit guy, right? You're going to fit with lots of stuff. I think he'll be the best working in tandem with someone else for the Pacers. And then using those advantages to kind of bend our defense or attack an already bent defense or whatever. So look for Kam Jones on the floor for there to be a lot of screens. I think that's going to make him pair well with Isaiah Jackson, who maybe it's Wiseman, but whoever the best screening big is for the Pacers might end up being a good partner for Kam Jones in the way Kam Jones can kind of turn and just kind of lob it up slowly toward the rim. He might be a good lob guy. I think those two specifically will have good synergy given what the Pacers are. And he's got enough size to be disruptive on defense, right? 93rd percentile defending pick and roll ball handlers last year. I didn't walk away from his defense being like, oh my gosh, he's going to be such a game-changing level defender. But, being able to, it's like Huff, but a little different because Huff has some physical limitations where his read of the game and where space is really does apply to the defensive end as well. So Kam Jones, very heady. I think what I walked away from where he could help the Pacers, though, is that when he works in tandem with another big, with another screener, with someone else who the defense has to make a decision with, he will be much better at making those decisions, at turning them into shots that he can make or an attack that he can do or just a shot for the Pacers in general. That is generally positive. I came away a little rosier on Kam Jones. Not that I was ever low on him. I thought it was a good pick. I explained why it made sense at the time, but I was like, I just feel more comfortable that he'll have enough variation in his game to not just be limited to being a left-handed point guard who can, kind of create. He might have a little more juice to him off the ball than I realized, and that gives him lots of paths to develop, a la Andrew Nembhard. I saw a video pre-draft of Kam Jones talking about kind of players he could compare himself to in the NBA. I think Alex Riley tweeted it, and he mentioned Nembhard, right? And now I see it. Not comparing talents. Getting a second rounder to be as good as Andrew Nembhard, which is funny because Andrew Nembhard was a second rounder, is super rare. Super rare. Andrew Nembhard goes top 5 in a redraft of his draft. But Kam Jones being that type of player, being able to play multiple positions, pesky on defense, effective on offense, is there. Taelon Peter. Is he more than meets the eye? Well, we've already talked about all the stats, but is there more to the stats than just makes a million threes and dunks? Let's finish this one out talking about some more Taelon Peter. Back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Sorry about my mic. That was probably not fun to hear. Make your second listen Locked On NBA. Game night last night was me and Wes Goldberg talking about the Celtics, the Lakers, the Clippers, DeMarcus Cousins, Michael Jordan sideline interviews. We got into so much stuff as we do. And the schedule. The schedule release. A few marquee games being released by the NBA, including the Pacers home opener against the Thunder, a finals rematch. The Pacers schedule will come out on Thursday. Adam and I will do our schedule game show early next week. Looking forward to doing that one. He'll be traveling, so we can't do it just straight up on Thursday. Let's continue here on Locked On Pacers, closing up to how they can help series for the whole summer. It's only one episode, only 3 new guys. Wiseman's last game played was for the Pacers. Isaiah Jackson's last game played was for the Pacers. So, yes, they were free agency signings, but people know how they can help. They've seen them play for the Pacers. These other guys have not. Okay, Taelon Peter. The sales pitch out of college was shoot threes. That's awesome. That's obviously very good. You can stop right there. Dunk, right? This is a combo of shooting and athleticism that would be attractive to any team. 20 dunks, insane 3-point percentage, good 2-point percentage. That's a good player. That's great, right? Obviously, that's the case for the how he can help part. That's already a bet worth taking for an NBA team. Efficiency, athleticism. Then Summer League happened. And he often moved the ball in lieu of shooting. And his defense, there was a few defensive things that we'll talk about later that were not exceptional, but was stocky and helpful. And he played mature ball and kept things moving in a way that wasn't the ramp up from Liberty to Summer League NBA play wasn't so massive, so daunting for him. That makes me think there's more to that. That made me, think there was more to this than just make threes, dunk ball. That's awesome. And so obviously just disgusting on spot offs. He's so good coming off of screens, right? I hope in every game he gets real appearances for, he has the greenest of lights. Just chuck it, man. G League, NBA, whatever he gets on his 2-way, fling that thing up. And then you get to the Pacers-y stuff. And this is where you kind of see more of his game than just the threes and the dunks. 48 for 61 on twos in transition last year. 98th percentile as a cutter. That's good. He can see the space and get into it. That's at Liberty, where it's, the talent level isn't super high. Sometimes the spacing can be jank. He was very good at it. AKA sees open space, gets to it. when he doesn't have the ball. That's perfect. He should not really be an on-ball ISO creator type guy ever. And so having that baseline of effectiveness is a good start for Taelon Peter, right? Because so much of his efficiency is about that. It's all off ball, and that's going to be where he's best with the Pacers. And like, if you made me sum this up, his case, and when I dove into all three of these guys, like I found other things that they were good at beyond the case for why the Pacers acquired them. Taelon Peter, a lot of that stuff was just the case stuff, right? There wasn't as much outside of it, but there is some more, right? The maturity, the knows how to play stuff, right? 6% turnover rate. Like his usage isn't crazy high because he's just mostly a play finisher. Like that will make your usage high, to be clear. But like his like true usage, how much he actually has the ball isn't super high. 6% turnover rate, that's crazy low. That's insane, right? That's great. And he got off the ball more than I thought he would in summer league, and he still didn't turn it over that much. Like that's going to be a good thing. In that I've compared him to Shepherd in that he seems like a guy who will be, or at least profiles as a low mistakes kind of player. And that turnover rate really reflects that. I think he's going to be Shepherdy in that he will want to make the right play all the time. And that's good. That will keep you on the floor and give you chances to develop. But again, I hope there are more games. I would rather if I'm the Pacers or not the Mad Ants, that's not a team anymore. If I'm the Pacers or the Boom, I would rather see Taelon Peter take 10 threes and have 3 turnovers than take 5 and have no turnovers, right? Chuck, be aggressive, all that kind of stuff, because his efficiency is how he can really help this team. Going back to the defense, right? He didn't suck against like any play type. That was really interesting to see diving into the numbers, is that you never know what somebody 6'4", what that's going to look like. And then in summer league, he kind of held up, right? And so that does make some sense, right? That he wasn't like amazing. He was like 50th to 60th, a couple in the 70s percentiles as a defender against most play types. Nothing awesome. But for a guy who, like in summer league, besides getting wrecked by some screens, like his screen navigation is clearly where he's going to need to take his next focus defensively. And that was his worst, by the way, college defensive thing too, is pick and roll ball handling defense. He can hang in some actions, right? And I think that's going to be good for the Pacers, that he'll be limited by his height more than anything on defense, more so than his skill. Like he can hang in most situations. He'll be a helpful, at times, defensive player. That's good. That was one of beyond the turnovers. Another thing that I walked away from, besides his like statistical profile of like shooter dunker guy, that he can help the Pacers beyond what else has been talked about. And the other reasons to be confident in his profile is he was amazing at the exact same things in D2. Elite percentiles and spot ups, cuts, the works, right, at Arkansas Tech. That's how he's going to help the Pacers. He is the most straightforward one of these. His profile of stats, what he did at Liberty, that's what he's going to do. He's going to make threes. He's going to dunk. He's going to be great. Both rookies were layups and threes guys in college, right? I already talked about the layups with Kam Jones, and like they were bad mid-rangers. Kam Jones only took 30 shots last year from outside the paint that weren't threes, right? Taelon Peter took 3. That's they don't do it. They're very Morey-bally with their shots. 81% at the rim, 70 for 86 for Peter, and they were both good from threes. That's a good thing. I think that they are most comfortable shooting the best shots. That will pay off for them well. And they're both good at finishing them. Like just ridiculous rim numbers from Taelon Peter. He was a corner god as well. And that is how the newest Pacers players can help the Pacers. I hope this helped. I hope you learned something. I learned a lot, certainly. And now with the help of the experts, if you missed that show, that was last week. Joe Molinax of Locked On Grizzlies, for example, talked about Jay Huff. A couple others came in to talk about Kam Jones and Taelon Peter. That will help you learn about them from people who've covered them before. This, I hope, helped you learn about them statistically and really put a bow on their full package of positives when it comes to their skill set and how they'll help the Pacers this year. That's the end of this series because there's no one else. Tomorrow, more gap year talk, diving in more to that concept with John Corrales of Locked On Celtics. Friday, we'll look at, can any Pacers win awards this year? That's always a fun one to do in the offseason as well. Next week, I already have my 2 guests, mostly in mind. We'll do the schedule show. Josh Lloyd and I are going to talk. It's a blast. Okay, thank you all so much for listening today. You can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Tony R. East. This podcast is on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Pacers. Back tomorrow talking more about the Pacers. Till then, everybody, have a wonderful day.